G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it. Welcome everyone. Today I'm interviewing Laura Bell from SafeStack based in Northland, New Zealand. Thanks for your time today.
Yeah, no worries. Lovely to be chatting.
Let's start with how we know each other. So Peter, our podcast producer, reached out and asked you to come on the show. So thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Not a problem. It's great to talk about these things. The more stories we hear, the better we all get.
Absolutely. Tell our audience a bit about your business, what it does and how it makes money.
Absolutely. So I'm the founder of SafeStack. We are a specialist cybersecurity company aimed at high-growing companies and those who may not have their own internal security team. We make our money by a bit of advisory work, but primarily these days through our online education platform, SafeStack Academy.
Great. Yeah, I'm imagining it would be a much needed, more needed these days, last 5 or so years. Cyber attacks have really gone through the roof, haven't they?
Absolutely. It's sadly a growing industry, but that makes it an opportunity to do something that's more people focused rather than just make people even more scared.
Yeah. And how did you start out?
The honest answer, we're good with honest answers, right? I rage quit a job when it would have been 6 years ago. I had a lot of ideas about how things could be done differently, particularly in fast moving organizations. And I've lost my patience with not being able to do any of them. So I kind of put my money where my mouth was, which was $300.
Yep.
And I wheeled my little office chair down Queen Street in Auckland to a shared space, and off I went.
So explain to me, I've never heard that term, rage quitting. That's a good one.
Yeah, it's that point where there's problems you can solve and you can address, and there's problems that you can just fight day after day. And if you're in that kind of fighting and not being able to fix situation, it's the time to leave. And for me, that was my rage quit. Is don't fight something you can't fix. Go do something better. Absolutely.
I love that Einstein quote. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. So good on you for making the jump. So you were in a corporate job before this?
Yeah, a number of corporates and a lot of government in my background.
Yeah, right. So this is your first business?
Yeah, first time around.
Great. And so 6 years ago, 2015, how old were you when you made the jump?
I was 30.
30, great. And do you have any key numbers you can share with the audience to illustrate the growth?
Sure. I think we, like many businesses, have kind of gone through cycles and tried different things. Right now, we're really focused on our online education platform, which launched in July last year. And so we're about 5 and a bit months in, and we're now at 4,000 learners, $280,000 annual revenue. So we're looking at very, very fast growth across a number of interesting sectors for our clients.
That's great. It's excellent revenue, almost $300,000 a year recurring.
Yeah, in the first 5 months, it's not bad. We're on track for that hitting $1 million within the year.
Great.
And in terms of the team, we were 1 person when we started. At our biggest, we've been 17. Right now, we're 8.
Yeah.
But that team we're really proud of them. We're 7 women and 1 guy, and we're doing some really great stuff in the security space. So it's exciting times.
Fantastic. When was the moment you felt like you'd succeeded?
I don't know. I have to remind myself to celebrate successes. I think we all do as small business leaders.
Yeah.
I think I know I succeed when I talk to someone who has been engaged with us or attended one of our courses or gained one of their certificates. And I speak to them, 6 months later, and they tell me the adventure they've been on since, where they've changed something, or they've been bringing security to their world, or they turn up in another employer and they're talking about us and the excitement that they had with that experience. And then I know we're doing something that means something to people.
Great. And what does success look like to you?
I'm actually a really simple person. There's revenue figures and things, but to be honest, success for me as a person is making sure that we're hitting our goals of making security more inclusive for everyone. I consider you to be a rich person if you have a roof over your head, food on the table, and clothes on your back. And so for me, it's more mission and values driven.
I think a lot of people really miss that point that Australia, New Zealand and all the first world nations, we're in a pretty good spot on the ladder of, well up on those that are in poverty, etc. And we've got it pretty good. So that's a really good outlook to have. Number one thing you'd recommend to marketing a fast-growing business?
Be kind. Be kind with your time. One of the things I've done over the years is I've taken a lot of meetings that most people would have kind of said, no, it's not worth my time. And even those people who actually at the time they just needed to throw an idea out and just spend 20 minutes talking through something, if 3 years later they've become a giant advocate for us and have come back. So, don't write things off because they don't appear to be immediately in your favor. Give your time. Time doesn't cost a lot. Most of the time we just get on with it, and just kind of be that supporter in the world to others, and they will come back.
And funding your business, apart from the initial $300, any bank loans, investors, or just?
Nope, we're bootstrapped. We are pursuing a funding round this year. It's our first ever time because we've gone into the product space. But until now, everything has been reinvestment of the revenue that we've generated.
Yep, terrific. And if you were to start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into your industry?
Yeah, I think I would. I've been in this space almost 20 years, and there are many, many really interesting, if a little unsexy problems that still need to be solved. But I may not do it perhaps in the same way. I'd probably do something more scalable first rather than starting with advisory.
Got it. Can you outline the most stressful point in your small business growth journey so our audience can learn from it?
Sure, absolutely. I can think of two, and I'll very quickly cover both because I think it's worth it. The first was we developed a product in 2017. We got a few customers. It was good. We liked it. There was a need, but it didn't work out. And making that choice to restructure and to close it down and to kind of lick my wounds and pick myself up was a really hard moment as a leader. You don't want to let your team down. You don't want to make mistakes, but you do. And kind of picking yourself up from that kind of moment where you're telling paying customers, hey, we have to turn this off. It's not working. That was really hard. And the other has been hiring and making the wrong decisions with hiring. Hiring when you're small is really challenging because, not everyone wants to work for a small company. And so hiring badly is very expensive, and not just in terms of money, but in terms of the emotional energy and the impact on other people in the team. So I've learned a lot in that space, and it's something that I now have to be very, very careful with.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's one of the areas really deficient, particularly in small business, is on the management level and in particular recruitment, because we often all tend to rush. Think, we don't have time. Let's just get someone in, and we mishire, and that is very, very costly.
One of my most important things we do in hiring now is we have a rule of it's better to have an empty seat than the wrong person in it. And so we judge every time we're hiring, are we meeting that role? Are we hiring the right person, or are we just filling a seat? If we're just filling a seat, it's not the right time.
That's a really good rule. Just back on you mentioned how your initial product that you launched wasn't the right fit for market. Did you do much customer discovery or, designing your value proposition before you, or just jump?
I'll be really honest. I'm a security nerd.
Yeah.
And this is some of the things I learned the hard way first time around. The validation we've done, there were flaws in it. It was biased because of the people I was talking to, the questions I was asking. And so there was a lot I took away from that process that I could improve on around that validation. And also, one of the reasons we didn't get as far is we weren't able to communicate the story and the value as well as we wanted to. As security nerds, we were like, yeah, definitely, this solves your problem. But it was in an industry that was actually quite nascent. It was new. And so we had to educate our users on why it was important. That's really hard if you're coming from the technical side of it. So it's something we've definitely put a lot of work into improving.
It reminds me of one of my favorite Peter Drucker quotes: the customer rarely buys what the company thinks it's selling. I think that is really important. Have you looked at any of the Strategizer framework and the business canvas material?
Yeah, we played around with business canvas a bit. We also got some really great help from a mentor over in Sydney who helped us understand that we were approaching it from a demographic point of view. So you look like this, you have 10 people, you work in this field. It was very data driven. But actually for our space, a lot of the sales in cybersecurity are psychographic. They're based on emotion and shared values. And so when we started, instead of looking at people as the numbers they were and started looking at the human problems that they were facing and their mindset to solving them, we had a lot more success in that validation space.
Yeah, I had Bob Mester on the cast a couple of times. He's written a best-selling book around this demand-side selling. And he speaks exactly to that, the social and emotional pressures that people have on them when they make these purchasing decisions. So, and some of his Sorry, yeah. Some of his work is actually in the strategizer books, actually, on the jobs to be done and those the 3 powers of progress within decision making.
In security, it's quite challenging because when you're buying something in security, you're saying to the salesperson, I am vulnerable. I have a problem. Somebody could harm me. And admitting that's really, really hard. So it puts that sales position into quite an adversarial space before you give them the gun. Part of what we need to do more in my industry is appreciate that human element and kind of make people feel safe so they can engage and buy what they need, not what gets them out of that vulnerable situation quickest.
Yeah, totally. And I'd highly recommend to the audience to check out the strategizer.com material. There's some good books there. We've gone through it with one of our businesses recently, and it's really helped us ask the right questions of our customers before we jump into launching a product to make sure, one, it is the right product, and two, that we're marketing or talking the right language when we're approaching prospects. What area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
I don't have a strong financial background, so making sure that I had a really good grasp on the numbers has been really valuable use of my time. And the other side, I think, is it's more confidence in management. Especially if it's your first time in business, it can be quite tempting to kind of be a little bit shy and doubt your decisions a bit more. But actually being authentic to myself and finding the confidence in my style of management has actually been more powerful than me then trying to emulate somebody else because I wasn't feeling certain of my own expertise. Yeah,
totally. And what have you enjoyed least about managing the fast growth?
I think it's that feeling for me of letting people down. Fast growth, it is a bit of a roller coaster. You have really great days and you have really terrible days, and you can have one day that's all of those things in between. Yeah. But it's that, feeling as a leader that people have trusted you to join this small, fast growing thing, and they're putting all their heart and soul into it. And as a leader, you don't want to let them down. You want to kind of keep them on that journey and keep the ship tight. So I think that is for me.
What do you love most about growing a small business?
I like the challenge of it. I like that I never stop learning. I like that I can see the value in what I do every day, and that I can shape a company to be that mission-oriented space and not just be about the margins and that kind of side. And I like the flexibility. I have 2 young children, and it gives me the ability to build a company that respects the time I spend with each of those.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same, being able to do school pick up and drop off, even at short notice. If my daughter's mother is unavailable, it's great to have that flexibility. What's been the biggest mindset shift for you in your small business growth journey?
It's probably around asking for help. I'm English. Now, when you grow up in the UK, you don't ask for help. You kind of sort of make a lot of hints and nudges, and you hope somebody guesses you need the help. And that's just sort of the way you're brought up. Yeah. But learning to go, actually, no, I need explicitly this help right now. Please, could you give it? Made me very uncomfortable to start with, but actually has been a big boost to me actually getting things done. And realizing that actually most people will help you willingly with time and with a smile. And if they can't help you, they'll just say no, and it's no dramas.
Exactly. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So asking, particularly around mentors, people would be surprised if they ask people that are further down the road or retired. They've got heaps of time on their hands and they want to give back and help people avoid some of the mistakes that they made in their business journey.
Absolutely. And you don't have to have one mentor that covers all those bases. You can have a group that each has got their own specialization, and that's really powerful.
What's the number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
Look after themselves. You need to schedule your fitness time and your health activities as if they were the most important client appointment in your diary. And then you have to hold yourself accountable to them, because the energy it takes to grow something is beyond what you can imagine going into it. And coming back from burnout is ridiculously painful. Yep. So use your health as if it was a precious resource and protect it.
And it's counterproductive just to go with brute force, work 80-hour weeks, burn out. It's just not smart, and you get more achieved if you work reasonable hours and you find that balance.
You also send the wrong message to your team if you do that kind of burnout behavior.
Yeah.
Because what you're modeling is behavior you expect from them. And if you wouldn't expect them to do it, why would you do it yourself?
Exactly. And making it a rock, have you heard of the Stephen Covey analogy of the fish tank? Putting your rocks in first, then the pebbles and the sand will fit in around that. Making health one of those rocks that goes in the tank where you're weak first is really, really crucial.
Find it hard to define a clear strategy, then communicate it and execute it alongside the rest of your team? Or you currently don't work a simple quarterly strategic plan to boost your team's performance? Our Business Growth Formula online course is perfect for small business owners with 5 to 30 team members wanting to grow. We share the mindsets, habits and tools to be a legendary leader in your business. growsmallbusiness.com.
Can you talk to how you've added people to the team, some wins, mistakes and advice for those listening?
Sure. So we've added at various intervals. I try and hire when we're in pain and not too soon because, cash flow and things. And I think some of my biggest wins have been hiring outside my bubble. Like we all have the people we naturally connect with and they're in our social circles and our professional circles. And sometimes you're really lucky and that circle is filled with diverse people and it's wonderful. But if you're like me, actually my bubbles are quite nerdy technical security people. When I was hiring for marketing people, sales people for our awareness space, I needed people who had things and knowledge and experience I didn't have. So finding ways to reach outside that has given me some amazing opportunities. Big mistakes, not using a recruiter sooner for certain roles. I was very cynical about recruiters, I'll be very honest. I thought they were kind of, a bit gross. Sorry, recruiter types. But actually, when you find a good one who really understands the roles and the population you're trying to pull from, it can save you a lot of headache and administration and find you some candidates you would not have thought were even possible.
Out of interest, did they do any part of the interviewing?
Pre-qualification.
Right.
So just making sure right to work, salary expectations, that kind of thing. So we didn't waste anyone's time.
Yep. And what are some of the things you'd recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help with the growth?
As I mentioned earlier, model the behaviors you want to see. If you're not showing those behaviors, you won't get them from your team. Be more visible as a leader. So if I'm going to go look after my kids, for example, I'll say, hey, look, I've got to pop off. We've got an emergency. I'm going to do that. And I try and be overly visual just so that people can see that, particularly as we're a remote company, so we don't have the physical keys to go off. The other side is with communications, bear in mind that people's communication styles vary a lot based on where they were brought up, and try and get out of the habit of over-reading tone. So if you find you're in any of these conversations with any of your team and you're like, oh, that was really snarky or that was rude, just take a breath, jump on a video chat and just go straight into it. Just ask, hey, are you okay? And figure it out, because otherwise the communications really fail. And that's the most important gift we have, is communicating well with each other. Yeah,
I agree. Communication is the key to any relationship. Tell our audience how you've handled balance.
Oh, badly. This is one of the things I've learned the hard way. I've learned it by falling over. In the early days, you've got that fear of, especially when you're hiring people for the first time, is it all going to be okay? Even though the numbers look good, but you've got the uncertainty of the world. And now we have a pandemic, which doesn't even help that particularly well. And so I used to be always on my phone. So I'd have my work email on my phone and I'd have my Slack and it'd all be there. Now, I rock two phones. The charming designer Captain Marvel phone is my work phone. And at 6 p.m, it goes off until 8 a.m. And so balance for me is about saying, actually, no, work is between these times. If there is a crisis, if there's something urgent, absolutely, we're going to down tools and we're going to do it. But balance is drawing a line and making sure that the other things in your life are happening, because we're stronger and better at our jobs that way.
Yeah, I agree. And it's quite insidious, isn't it? And hard also as a business owner, because you always are worrying about the business or thinking about it, especially if you're going through growth. It is hard to switch off, but that is a really good mechanism to put in place.
It's crude, but it works for me.
Yeah, good one. And how much professional development have you invested in yourself over time? Books, podcasts, courses, training, conferences, etc.?
I read a lot. So there's normally a book going on or two, normally around management and communication and habits and all sorts of, those kind of things at the moment. I spend probably a couple of $1,000s a year on my own personal development as to wherever my career aims are. So last year I wanted to understand sales more, so I got a coach in the sales space. This year I'm focusing on a future goal for me, which is more executive and board roles. So I'm going to do some observing on some large company boards. So I try to treat my career path and where I'm trying to get to as slightly separate to what my company is going to do. I'm 36. I still sadly have a large number of years until I retire, probably. And so I'm trying to make sure I have the skills I need to run the business, but also the skills to get me to wherever is coming next. And my team know about that. It's not a secret. I don't think leaders should be secretive about the fact that one day they might want to do something else.
Yeah, that's good. And it's really good that you're proactively investing in your own development. And if you've had mentors or coaches along the way, you can talk to that experience and any value added there.
Absolutely. I've had mentors at every stage of my career. I started out as a software developer when I was 17, and I came straight from school. I didn't have any qualifications. So mentors were a really great way for me to compensate for some of those things that you might have learned in more formal education systems. And they've ranged from people who were ex-military, who were really good at teaching me how to prioritize and to how to articulate things and to talk about options and compromise, through to people who are my mentors right now, which is these are people who have done high growth, who have done growing a big thing or been acquired. And so they're able to give me that perspective as someone who's been there before. Not that it would be the same every time, but they've got a few gotchas and dragons they found on the way, and they can ask me questions and keep me accountable, which I think is really beneficial in a mentor.
And do you have a board of directors or advisors?
We have a small advisory board at this point, which is just 3 people. And so we're not quite ready for formal governance yet, probably in the next 2 years. So we meet every quarter-ish, give or take, to talk about strategy and direction mainly.
Yep, that's a good way to step into it. Start with some advisors, so they're not on the company register per se as a formal director, but they bring to the table specific skills. So often marketing is lacking in most small businesses. So having someone with a big, deep marketing background, for example, or financial, as you mentioned before, is often also lacking around the table. And then as you get bigger and as the growth takes off, you then obviously need to formalize it a bit more. And some people step on as formal directors, and then their asses on the line, obviously, for insolvency and a heap of other, regulation and laws out there. So yeah, it's a really, really good mechanism. All right, Lara, we're on to our final 5 questions. What do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
I think the hardest thing in growing a small business for us has been trusting our journey to be different from other companies, and it didn't matter too much what the other ones were doing. Like, being aware of your competition is one thing, but being driven by them is just a mistake.
Yeah.
And in those early days, comparison is really tempting and not particularly helpful.
Favorite business book which has helped you the most?
Favorite business book that's helped me the most? Thinking Fast and Slow. I think that's Dan Kaufman. I'm reading Atomic Habits at the moment, as I had a recommendation of that because I'm building some practices around wellness in the team. So we're learning about habit formation.
Right.
And, it's a cliche and I know everyone's read it, but I do like the Brené Brown book, The Gift of Imperfection, and the lessons in there about being authentic and owning your mistakes as well as your victories.
Yeah, I think that habit forming is great. I've started reading a few books around that in the last year or so. I think it's really powerful. Reminds me of one of Aristotle's quotes: "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit." And it's just so powerful to just change minor things in your week, your month, your year, in your day. You will achieve a lot more and feel a lot better.
A side note, it relates to another Kurt Vonnegut quote, if you're interested in quotes and that kind of thing. You are who you pretend to be, so be careful who you pretend to be.
That's a good one.
But it links to habits. We do these things every day. You start your company not really knowing anything. You pretend to be a business leader, if you will, for that first day. Yep. And you pretend every single day, and before you realize that you are actually a business leader, and it's not a mask, it is who you are. Any
great podcasts or online learning tools you use for your own professional development?
I've got to give a plug to the Risky Business podcast in the security space. If you want to get your fix of what's happening in the security news without it being all drama and hype and doom and gloom. It is a bit technical, but it is a really good digest of the news. And they also do a paper-based email version if you are a reader rather than a listener. Other than that, I just kind of do a skim of the major business presses, but I also don't take them too seriously because at the moment it's still quite difficult to see what's commercial and what is actual analysis.
One tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
Zapier. Zapier is a SaaS product for connecting other SaaS tools together. So if you're like me and you've got quite a few tools that do stuff, I've built what I call my robot army. I'm very time poor because we do a lot with a very small team.
Yep.
And so lots of things have been automated into workflows so that I don't have to worry about it. And I'm also interrupt driven, so it can tell me when I need to care about things.
Right.
If you tell me to put it on my to-do list, it's never going to happen.
Brilliant. Finally, my favorite question. What would you tell yourself on day one of starting out?
I tell myself this, but I know I wouldn't listen because that's just how we all are. I tell myself to believe in myself more and to be confident and to don't sweat the small stuff. And you know, on a very personal note, to sort my anxiety out. You know, if you do have any anxiety in your life, and a lot of us do naturally, that gets amplified when you're doing high risk things like growing a business. So if you know you've got those things, it's not a problem. It's not going to stop you, but make sure you've got your mechanisms for handling it because it's not going to get any easier by running a business.
Very good message, Laura. Very good. Yeah. Well, thanks for your time today. I think the audience will get a shit ton of value out of what you've shared with us. Congratulations on rage quitting 6 years ago.
Thanks.
Up to a team of 7 now. And you said you peaked at 17 team members?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so I assume then that went down, you really cut back on a lot of the advisory and moved focus.
After we restructured from the first product that didn't work out, there were just a number of roles that we couldn't sustain.
Yeah, great. And at about almost 300 grand a year recurring revenue, growing up to $1 million very soon. That is in 5 months, 300 grand is phenomenal growth. So well done.
Thank you. Yeah. And thanks for having me on. It's been really great to talk.
Great. Thanks.
And for our audience, we'd greatly appreciate a review in iTunes or whatever platform you listen to us on. More reviews means we bubble up higher in iTunes, etc. So more business owners looking for podcast help with their growth will find us.